We're heading into game number 1. We're going to be starting on Royal Blood in the bottom left-hand side of the map, on top of the red Zerg player. He is RagnaroK from Team Alpha X.
And up here in the top right side, formerly known as Time, a player that has been growing and evolving over the years, dominating his home region in China, and now he wants to dominate the world. Representing Kaizi Gaming, give it up for Oliveira.
Important match for both of these two, and it's worth mentioning that both of them have already played a TVZ before in the group, and actually, unfortunately, both of them ended up losing the TVZs that they played, so now they're going to be facing off against each other. This is the last kind of big match that they got to face off in, and it's going to be interesting to see how their styles kind of clash like you were talking about.
RagnaroK did fall victim to Clem's mech, I believe, in one game, and another one got kind of overwhelmed in more of a standard bio game. It was the one where he tried to get away with Mutalisks, and Clem kind of just pushed into him way too aggressively and was really good at catching the Mutas and punishing them. I thought it was a promising strategy, but since then RagnaroK has kind of defaulted to a bit more standard Zerg versus Terran. Oliveira, on the other hand, dropping a 2-1 series to Dark, which is, of course, nothing to be too worried about, because Dark has been smashing everybody, but definitely, well, other than RagnaroK, actually. So, yeah, I mean, I keep forgetting that actually RagnaroK dominated Dark. So we've got kind of like Dark seems to be the king of ZVT, but RagnaroK has actually been smashing the ZVZ as well. So it's a bit of an interesting group where every match still matters.
No, absolutely. So we're going to see what these players are going to be busting out against each other. And I think it's actually really refreshing. You were talking about this just before, and we've seen such diversity in TVZ, and I feel like that's not what we usually think of when we think of TVZ. TVZ has always been, for so many years, that matchup that you look at and say, well, we all know what the openings are usually going to be. Maybe there's a small variation, but it's about the execution. But we've really seen a variation of actual strategies lately.
It's really cool, because even, I mean, last season did start to get towards a bit of a static meta, but it actually started to evolve simply because people were so used to it. Like Maru was at the cutting edge of doing these like reactive marine openings where you're doing like 6 marines in a widow mine, dropping the main, 3 Hellions try to run by in the third. Is it a battle cruiser afterwards? Lots of 2-base pushes, which Bunny was at the cutting edge of. And I feel like Oliveira, he's definitely capable of mixing in just about anything. But to start the series off, a 3rd command center opening, so definitely heading in the direction of the big macro game. And on the other hand, RagnaroK looked like he was a bit paranoid about a proxy barracks, because he did go with that spawning pool first, and it seems like both sides just played conservative. Oliveira kept the Reaper at home in case Zerglings ran in, and RagnaroK, on the other hand, just built a couple of Zerglings, an early Queen, and both players playing very carefully in this match.
Yeah, I actually like that too, because both of these players have definitely shown their proclivity to try and get a little bit aggressive or start off a series being a little bit cheeky here or there. But Reaper is going to get denied for moving up into the main base. It scouts out the 3rd base location, kind of confirms, all right, things are looking pretty normal, nothing too wild, and we already see that extra command center going up inside of Time's main base. So settle up for a good old standard macro game so far.
I mean, think about what we've seen in these groups so far, as well as in the round of 36. There was so many dirty builds coming out. Like, a lot of people were opening up the series with nasty cheeses, lots of proxy barracks, and just crazy build orders. And as a result, it's nice to see now when everything's on the line, we're getting to the very final stages of the group stage. The players are starting to lock things up and go, let's not take any chances. I will not be surprised by any of those cheeky plays. Oliveira still sees no workers on that 3rd base. He scouts it again about 4 minutes 30, and there's no workers on the 3rd. That's where he's going to start to get very paranoid. On the other hand, he's building Banshees, so that is incredibly safe, right?
Yeah.
Banshees shut down any roach aggression. Mass Queen for RagnaroK. And great Overlord Scout. He's going to see the cloak on the way on that starport.
Yeah, going back exactly to what you were saying, it is going to be, because it's the standard opening, it's the tried and true, and it is going to be a lot about the execution of how these two players are going to be able to match up against each other. The Banshee opening, so common from the, way back in the day. So both of these players have a lot of experience with it, and it's going to be seeing how much damage can really Time get done? Can he pick off some creep tumors? Can he find a little opening with those drones? And it does feel like we've seen a little bit of a resurgence of Terran players who are willing to dive a little deeper sometimes with those Hellions than maybe they used to.
Well, RagnaroK's pretty light on the Zerglings, so that could have worked if he chose to do it, but he didn't. And as a result, RagnaroK adds a few more Zerglings for safety now, realizing, all right, let's not take too big a risk there. looking at both of their cameras, I've been kind of studying the demeanor of both players, and I feel like they've both just stood up to the pressure very well. We haven't really seen either of them panic under pressure. No big uncharacteristic mistakes, which I feel like you get to the World Championship, it really does separate, you know, the men from the boys, so to speak. The players who are able to step up to that competition level and play sometimes even above their normal level because of the pressure, because of the stage. And then there is, of course, the other players who crumble underneath it and make a lot of mistakes. Both of these guys have incredibly, you know, played up to what we expect of them. And they're actually performing very nicely. Banshee's flying through the center here. Lair is finished, but I don't think an Overseer's morph just yet. There we go.
Yeah, it's going to start over there, but that means that those two Banshees should still be able to do a little bit chip damage here or there. No scans actually being thrown out, so all of that creep is going to be safe for the moment as the Hellions try and rotate around. It really seems like the kind of focus here for Time is actually find real drone damage rather than just picking off creep tumors.
And he needs it because there's a Spire already about 1/3 complete. RagnaroK hit 70 workers so quickly in this game. And Oliveira is going 5 barracks at once behind it. So he's doing a 6 barracks transition. Very quick upgrades for him. And upgrades are always a huge advantage against Mutalist play. Oh my. Wow, already 8.
Wow.
Already 8 barracks. I was like, look at the production tab. I was like, there's no way he had 3 barracks up already. But apparently, this is a very quick 8 racks. This is exactly what Clem did up against RagnaroK and managed to take him out. So it's going to be a similar matchup. Can RagnaroK make the adjustments and find a way to deal with what is going to be an absolute cascade of bio coming across that map?
This is a hyper-aggressive style that Time has chosen to play against RagnaroK. RagnaroK Spire is about to finish up. He's got a good amount of gas, a good amount of minerals banked, and all these Banshees are going to be able to continue to whittle away at things like that hatchery for a little bit. They know that they are going to be on a timer very, very shortly as 10 mutas are immediately started on up. And it's just a matter of time, excuse the pun, before Time is going to be hitting his big, big window of opportunity.
Yep, Oliveira as we call him now, thankfully trying to make it easier for us to cast, but we all fall into old habits. Spirit is still soul as well. Tell me I'm wrong. Hellions and Marines here coming forward on the creep. I do like that first-person view. Notice he's being very cautious, though. This is a poke, right? So many units sitting at the third. No Banes, no Zerglings getting in that either. A couple of creep tumors are going to go down on that right side. And the big problem, of course, is the information's been hidden. Oliveira is like, yep, getting my armory, getting ready for 2-2, already at 150 supply. I'm going to be maxing soon. He's going to start pushing across the map. The mutas come in. They see all these barracks. RagnaroK now knows what he's up against. Combat shields would be a big
Ooh.
SCVs are pulled to deal with it, but there's not many Marines popping out. There we go. Okay, he pulls off it for a moment, starts picking off those Marines one at a time. Oliveira's going to shove the left side, trying to punish RagnaroK for being across the map. Where the heck are the Banelings?
RagnaroK just doesn't seem to have many defenses whatsoever. The Zerglings are all trying to rally down to the south side. A few Banelings are starting to morph. 8 Banelings on the way, but is that actually going to be enough in conjunction with the rest of the Banelings that are there? This is such an aggressive setup here for Oliveira, but the missile turret gets taken out.
Giant dive there. Good SCV pulled by Oliveira, but he's already lost so many medevacs and Marines. A few more are coming out, but he's got to stabilize at home. He's not able to do it, and that means he might need to shove on the front side. At the same time, he does go forward. Those upgrades are extremely exposed. RagnaroK's going to have to give up that area potentially. Oh, that's a lot of Banelings. That's a lot of Banelings, but I don't think he can give up the 1-1 upgrades. I do think he has to defend those Evo chambers.
He's going for it. He's trying to throw out the transfuses. The Evo chambers are going to be able to survive for now. He thwarts the attempt there from Oliveira to break through. The Sea Shanks are going to get pounced on, and as soon as those are taken out, he's able to back off, but the upgrades, 3 more seconds, and it looks like Oliveira is going to back off. The upgrades finish. A critical save there for RagnaroK, even though he loses the base.
RagnaroK, if you give him another minute, he's going to be way ahead in this game. Oliveira cannot stop attacking because 85 workers are still on the map. And look at that, gets in there before the turret's done. Oliveira's going to need to shove deep on creep. That's scary because there's speed Banelings preparing. RagnaroK is setting up a trap.
This is getting so dangerous. Oliveira on the timer. We're seeing him start to try and move on to the creep yet again, trying to poke forward, but it takes time to get actually the setup that you need. The Sea Shanks are sieged up, but you can see it's going to be so easy for the Zerg army to pounce on his opponent. You can see the picture-in-picture. The Banshees even getting cleaned up. RagnaroK getting up another base in the bottom right.
Some nice pre-spreads, though. The tank does not go down. Oliveira still has a scary amount of Marines and held that's there. 2-2's almost finished. The Marines do defend defend the Mutas on the right side. Queen's on the left side taking damage. Another round of Link Bane comes in, but so does the Marine rally. He's deep on creep though, and those Banelings get right on top of everything. RagnaroK with the essential cleanup that he needed, and that puts to rest Oliveira's dreams of killing him with that push. And now Oliveira has to deal with a massive economy deficit and a complete reset at home. RagnaroK has bought himself the time he needs.
This is the tough part of the style that Oliveira chose to play, is you're rallying everything you have across the map. You are really putting everything into that aggression that you have. And now there's not that much for Oliveira to actually fall back to. The one kind of nice thing that Oliveira's going to have finishing up are those 2-2 upgrades now finishing, giving him a nice upgrade lead, but it is still, like you were saying, Pig, a rough spot economically, and RagnaroK is going to have a good bit of freedom, especially with these metas just keeping the bio occupied at home.
I mean, he's got such a big worker advantage. All you need to do is delay as RagnaroK, keep re-expanding to the left side of the map, and keep backstabbing here as well. You've got such a numbers advantage, so much mobility, and look at that. RagnaroK knows what to do. He wasn't born yesterday. He's transferred his economy to the bottom right. It's well protected by creep. Oliveira coming in with a drop on the right, an attack on the left. The Lings are going to dive his base at the same time.
This is going to be a nice pickoff here for time, as it is going to pretty much be uncontested. A nice kill there. These Zerglings are also getting cleaned up. They do manage to snag 9 worker kills, though, and that may not necessarily be the most amount of workers in exchange for all those Lings, but it is plenty considering Oliveira's already really bad economy at this point.
Yeah, that is a very unfortunate situation, but no 2-2 started for RagnaroK. There is absolutely the dream here of a very powerful Terran army with upgrades getting it done. I'm thinking of those Spirit TVPs earlier on in the tournament. I'm thinking of those games where you're down at 20 workers versus 70 for 5 minutes straight, but the army advantage, if you let it get up there, can still do well. The problem in this matchup is there is a, you know, it's called the Baneling. The Baneling when it's on creep is a big issue for Marines. You can't force the issue. He's going to try to shove. RagnaroK just dancing in and out so far.
Well, there is actually the active creep tumor is missed with that scan, and the Marines having a hard time actually cleaning up all the creep spread over there. Oliveira trying to get aggressive on multiple fronts to try and distract and pull this army apart. It seems like it's working. He finds an opportunity to dive in on top of the hatchery. It seems like he should be able to kill that off. At the same time, RagnaroK tries to get a cleanup here on this right-hand side. He eventually does manage to push this back, forces a lift up, but the hatchery is down.
RagnaroK's economy kind of sucks right now. He's got a lot of workers, but he's got to rebuild those hatcheries, and that is actually very costly for him. His income is not much better right now than Oliveira. It's a little better, but really not that much. Mules are dropping especially. Oliveira does need to remember the +3 attack. He did do that a few seconds ago, so there will be a big upgrade advantage. Basically, the next 5 minutes of this game, it's always going to be at least a double upgrade advantage for the Terran. Yeah,
our wonderful observer also pointing out that there is not a lot of larvae either. With all the hatcheries going down, that's making it harder to also, I mean, that's not that much money to spend when you don't have that many bases to actually mine from with all those workers. But that's another reason why this triple expansion play, I think, is actually going to be the right call. He just needs to get up the hatcheries ASAP.
Second factory's finished. That makes it look like I think Oliveira might be adding more command centers in the near future and really evolving to a bigger style of play. It is going to be adding Widowmine production in, but that is still a few minutes away. At the same time, Infestation Pit won't be getting to Hive anytime soon. Great snap onto Medivacs.
Yeah, RagnaroK going to be very happy with that one. And he's been building up this Baneling count. It's getting to a little bit of a ludicrous degree at this point. But there's going to be a nice little window here yet again for RagnaroK, where he's going to have that +3 armor finishing. Although, RagnaroK finishing up +2/+2. But seems like Oliveira not too far behind on his weapon upgrades. Should be able to play catch up pretty quickly.
Concussive shells just got denied. He didn't restart it instantly. That means he may not have noticed. That could be a very impactful thing, because without the concussive shells, Marauders are nowhere near as good in this matchup. You want to slow down that front row of the Zerg so the rest of the units get stuck, clump up, and then the Widowmines get the big boomies.
Widowmine counts is going to be very important. And they're not set up over here. The Siege going to try and deal with some of these Banelings, but no way in heck that he's going to be able to prevent that Planetary Fortress from dying.
RagnaroK, the way he wins when he is ahead, it is the most disgustingly elegant way of just grabbing Baneling and smushing them into that Terran economy. It's the best thing to do, because you are just simply leveraging your larger amount of income and you're denying the Terran's ability to keep pace with you. The Mutas hit the right side. Siege Tech SCV is going down. Oliveira is going to go for one last-ditch push. 3-3 upgrades versus 2-2. Concussive Shell's about to finish as well. He's down in army supply, though. Fighting on creep against Mass Baneling. Very difficult.
Okay, well, those Banelings are getting some juicy connections, and there it is. Game number 1 goes to our Korean Zerg, RagnaroK. A solid victory there, and Pig, like you were saying, just brute force at the end once he got ahead.
That's what he does. He does it well. We did see it in one game where he, attacked with a massive Banelings off creep and it backfired. But for every time that happens, there's 3 or 4 times where he just stomps his opponent into the ground. It doesn't leave any chance for there to be any doubt. It was a very nice way to finish things off. It all came off the back of him basically playing Zerg the way it's meant to be played, and that is avoiding fighting the Terran front on. Remember, that big 8-Rax push was coming on. Oliveira was trying to set up an opening in the creep, a good spread of tanks, marines, hellbats, and he wanted to force the fight. What was the response? I'm going to grab all my lings and my mutas, just dive on the turret in your third, get in, cause as much damage to your economy and production as I can, give up my 5th base on the left side, and then move my economy and just migrate to the right side of the map. Obviously, the Evo Chambers barely surviving was a bit of a lucky call, and I think it once again reminds us why pro gamers building Evo Chambers out front their third is one of the most insane moves ever. You got lucky there, RagnaroK. Don't make that mistake again, buddy.
I think he is definitely going to be counting his blessings on that save, but what a stressful style, I have to say, it must be to just accept that I'm going to be losing bases left and right. He's going to consistently be sniping them off. I'm just going to be trying to retake them on opposite sides as I'm losing them while trying to do counterattacks. It seems like a very unstable kind of style when you look at it at first, but when you're able to execute it at that level like RagnaroK was doing, you can see how dangerous it can be.
Mutiling Bane is all about the mobility and buying time for those upgrades to finish so you can close the gap, whereas Terran is generally all about timing attacks, but especially with an 8-Rax style, it's like, I've got 1-1, I've got all my upgrades, I've got the army advantage, let's fight right now. In a strategy game, if your opponent really wants to fight you, the best strategy is to avoid fighting them front on. Backstab, get the economy, buy yourself time until everything matches up a little bit better for you, and that's exactly what RagnaroK did to an expert level in game 1.
Absolutely. We're going to be starting up here in game number 2 in the top left-hand side of the map. It is going to be our red Zerg player sitting up 1-0 from Alpha X. He is RagnaroK.
Already got a good turnout for the first series of the day here. Everybody's excited to see what is going to end up happening in these groups. This man's still fighting for that spot to the next round. In the bottom right side, representing Kaizi Gaming, it's Oliveira.
Oliveira definitely still putting up a great fight, but so far it seems like RagnaroK will not be denied. I love also, it's something that you were talking about earlier, Pig, as well, just the shift that he kind of has, RagnaroK does, from the earlier stage of the game where he is abusing that mobility and trying to, say, like as you were saying, avoid fights that you don't want to take, and then it transitions into the brute force, I will just overwhelm you with sheer numbers kind of style. It's like that switch flips and suddenly the entire kind of script turns on its head.
Yeah, 70 Banelings. And what I like about it as well is like a lot of players spread out and come from 3 or 4 angles, but RagnaroK is like, no. We run in with a big ball. There's 2 Zerglings in front to take the first 2 tank shots, and then this giant ball of Banelings because he just wants to get the planetary, get in, get out. That's his whole goal, is basically Terran takes so long to build those command centers.
We got the picture-in-picture of Overlord scouting at the high level observing from our 2 wonderful observers. Thank you guys so much.
Fantastic, absolutely top-notch. Good to see what the pervy boys, the Overlords, do see. There's not that many pillars on these maps. Right above the expansion has been one of the changes in this pool. You see these little high grounds. They're dotted throughout the map, but it used to be every map had one right next to the entrance of your base. This is one of the few maps that still has one where you can see the entire natural. But there's nowhere to run and hide with that Overlord if you do choose to, say, lift up your command center to snipe it.
Yeah, and we've even seen that kind of come into effect a few times throughout the event so far, where just one of the players decides that, hey, we need to try and send some Marines kind of out into a weird spot of the map, snipe off an Overlord or something. It's definitely been useful. Doesn't seem like Time's going to be doing, or sorry, Oliveira is going to be doing anything like that, sorry. Old habits die hard. But he is going to be going for a good old fast 3rd CC.
I know I'm a little bit of preacher at this point, but I do believe the power of Widowmines is fantastic in this matchup for creating some dynamic pushes. And I think on this map, it's, you've got a decent push path through the center, but I really feel like as the Zerg gets to the 4th and the 5th, defending Widowmine pushes down both flanks of the map. The classic multi-pronged biomine style is really hard. And if I look at these two players, I think RagnaroK's strength is his versatility, and I think that's exactly what the stats sheet showed. Over Oliveira, who's a bit more predictable, but I do think Oliveira is a little bit faster and more powerful when he's in the driver's seat. So I like the idea of Widowmines as a way of forcing a very mechanical matchup, because if you compare RagnaroK to Dark, for instance, Dark you're not going to beat in raw mechanics and speed. RagnaroK, on the other hand, don't get me wrong, he's very clever at not letting you get momentum, and because of that, people kind of go, oh, he's really powerful, it's hard to attack. Once you get him in a scrappy situation where a guy like Dark might just jump back out of that and find a way to recover, RagnaroK doesn't have the same mechanical speed. So he's somewhere where, like, just saying, I'm going to put you in a matchup of raw speed and mechanics, it's a very viable strategy for Oliveira here.
Yeah, especially in Terran versus Zerg. I think this is, even though we've seen more variety of strategy and things come about in the last 6 or so months of StarCraft 2 and TVZ, it is still a very mechanically demanding matchup to play. And if Oliveira can just bring it to that kind of game where he is able to try and outpace RagnaroK, force him to defend on multiple fronts, that might actually be to his boon. But we are going to see the Hellions and the Reaper try and poke in over here. In the last game, I want to note again, it seemed like Oliveira was really trying to focus in on going for drone kills, trying to find some damage with, say, the Banshee opening and everything, really ignoring a lot of the other potential opportunities of killing off creep tumors and such stuff like that. How do you kind of feel about that, and maybe how RagnaroK is going to probably look at the defense for this game?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I think it's something he's definitely calculating, and which 4th base you end up going for does always kind of play into it a little bit. I would love to see RagnaroK, kind of like the last game, go 4th and 5th base similar times, both sides of the map. So if he does have to give up ground on one side, you can just pull your drones to the other side. Losing a hatchery and a bit of mining time is not a big deal. Zergs lose this matchup when they end up standing and fighting in bad positions, and that allows you to then free up a lot of your army to go around, backstab and counterattack your opponent. But that assumes that you're the one with the mobility advantage. You're playing against Battle Mech Fear Dragon. That is not always the case.
Oh boy, it seems like we are going to have all of the components being thrown on down. Additional factories, the armory, Banshee, hyperflight rotors, all getting started on up here for Oliveira. And, well, I think one of the questions I have on my mind is, when is RagnaroK actually going to scout this as well? As he's going to see the Banshees come forward, but, you know, Banshee opening is one thing. It's all of the other things are going to be happening after that as well.
That was a very slick start. RagnaroK was slow to pull those drones off the gas. He loses 6 workers, so already Oliveira getting a little bit of momentum here. Spires on the way for RagnaroK. That's interesting. We haven't really seen heavy Muta versus Cyclone. Of course, he did go Mutas quickly on this map against Clem, did a bit of a sneaky backstab, and then he tried to rush Viper Hydra, but he never really got there before Clem was overwhelming him and causing too much damage. On the other hand, we saw Dark slap down Battle Mech with Fungal, right? Burrowed Infestors catching the Cyclones, catching the Banshees multiple times. And already Thor's on the way for Oliveira. Fascinatingly, looks like he really wants to shut down the Mutas, building Widowmines and Thors. Those units hard counter Mutalisks.
Hellion's got to get in position to help deal with these Lings, and it looks like he will be able to get to a beautiful spot. SCV's also absorbing a little bit of damage on that front line. Some of them are starting to fall, but that was a super stellar defense there from Oliveira, really well controlled. And if he can continue that kind of defense, I think Oliveira's going to be looking to be great in this second game.
That was clean as a whistle indeed. Going up to 5 factories now is Oliveira here, building missile turrets as well. My only worry is that he's being a little bit too defensive. I do think the new Cyclones rock versus Mutalisks, and yet another game where we're just not going to get to see it. Fear Dragon starting to upset me greatly, mate. You know, there's this new balance patch where the Cyclones are meant to beat Mutas, and the games where they go Cyclones, the Zerg never builds Mutas. The games where they build Mutas, the Terran won't build Cyclones. I'm like, I just want to see, I just want to know how it looks, but I haven't yet to see it in a pro match.
Yeah, for those wondering, the change to the Cyclone is a nice little Widowmine hit, connects on one of the Mutas. The change to the Cyclones is that they do more damage to units that are not armored, such as Lings or Mutas, but they do less damage to armored units.
And they also have half a lock-on range, and they will prioritize locking onto air units, which they used to not do, so Lings no longer will take up those lock-ons, which is pretty big, but we're yet to see the impact. That's massive.
This is a really big deal, but this could also be a big deal. So many Hellions get straight into the mineral line. Such a difficult position for these Lings to actually get the proper surround. All of the Lings get evaporated, and so do 15 workers so far.
Toss another drone on the Barbie, mate. That was disgusting. That was a massive amount of counter damage and makes up for losing those Banshees and potentially more. 3 more Thors are building at a time, and it feels to me like Oliveira's planning a push pretty soon. RagnaroK, on the other hand, he's not building roaches yet. Is he just going to play pure mass mutiling Bane?
Against this, that is going to be a dangerous call. Blue Flame has not actually been researched yet. That is still underway. It's a pretty fast upgrade. Is that going to... Oliveira, surely he has to wait for that, right? Before he does anything.
I don't think so. He's got Widow Mines. I think Widow Mine Thor is actually massive. I agree, Hellions are pretty big in there. He's going for building armor in a 4th command center, though. So maybe not going to hit that timing. The Hydra Den and the Infestation Pit are so late for RagnaroK. I'm pretty convinced that he would struggle with a committed 3-base push here. But of course, Oliveira playing the slow game, looking to really play up into the big mech play. And I would imagine after these last 3 factories, we're going to see barracks, ghost academies. It looks to me like Oliveira is confident playing the mega late game.
Okay, well, that's going to be exciting to see. We got all of these Thors ready to push back any of those mutas that so much as look at a command center wrong. And they're going to be spreading themselves around. This is going to be an interesting portion of the game as well, because this is where you get to that stage of the game where you have a Zerg player who has these hyper-mobile units that can dart around, and the Terran player is going to start getting a little bit less mobile with how many Thors Oliveira has, but Oliveira also still wants to try and spread out his bases as he continues to expand further and further out. So it's going to be a very, very good question of how well positioned Oliveira is with all of his units.
Interesting, a lot of the Thors are in splash damage mode.
Oh, okay, I see why now, Peg. I see why.
I was about to say that you normally leave only 1 or 2 in splash damage mode and the rest go into high impact payload, the single fire mode, because the Widow Mines are actually way better splash damage. You don't need the Thors, and a competent Zerg player will never clump their mutas too much. that was of course not a big battle. RagnaroK just wasn't expecting to run into Thors there, which is why he made that slight mistake. But I think it's fine because he's got to replace them with better units anyway. So
yeah.
Interestingly, he's going Hydra Bane, but no Lurkers yet. And against such a Thor-heavy army, I feel like Lurkers are usually a necessity. However, Pathogen Clans is in the production tab. That tells us RagnaroK is saying, no, I'm going to take those Thors and use them against you. So he's planning to do a lot of Neural Parasite in the late game.
What is the Hydra count at right now? Because I've seen a lot of Banelings in production. Okay, there's 1 Hydra on the map and he's maxed out. So he's going to have to trade some of the supply. He's going to look for a surround on some of his units.
The army split up. A big mistake here for Oliveira. Oh, he does save 2 of those tanks. Very nice move with the medevac and averts disaster. A few units do get picked off by RagnaroK very nicely as he goes for now Vipers and a Great Aspire. Fascinating. RagnaroK. Okay, at this point, though, there is a clear counter to this. It's pre-spreading. RagnaroK's shown his hand. You've seen mass Baneling. Now, as Oliveira, the big danger is F2, the select all army key, because against that many Banelings, you need to be spread across like 2 to 3 screens with your army, or the Banelings will overrun you, simply due to that firepower, and he's a little bit clumped up right now.
The Siege Tanks are going to be able to wail away at those Banelings, though. The Planetary Fortress goes down, but the Siege Tanks were in a fairly safe spot. The Muta's not going to be able to do too much damage to this command center. Even a single Thor is going to be able to push that back. Not actually the worst trade there for Oliveira, right?
No, that worked out all right, absolutely. Those tanks did siege in time. The Hellbats roasted the Zerglings, and you really want the Banelings to get rid of the Hellbats, the Lings to get rid of the siege tanks. And these mutas at this point, RagnaroK's like, I need that supply for better units. There we go, Banelings on the Hellbats, very good trade for RagnaroK in that little regard, but of course, they are pretty expendable mineral-only units that you can just replenish. Hydra Bane is not really the army. I really thought he'd be going Lurker Viper here, but Hydra Bane, he's going to try and make it happen. But now that there's so many tanks and the Thors are such a tanky front line, that is massive. The Thor cleaned up all the mutas in the picture-in-picture. Oliveira has a very strong push, and RagnaroK is on a rather basic army.
RagnaroK gonna try and throw down the blinding clouds all of these siege tanks, but there's so many siege tanks here. Is this gonna be enough? Even the flank of the Hydra's coming in from behind. It seems like it's gonna be barely enough to actually clean up all of the units here for Oliveira.
Those blinding clouds were absolutely mint, Fear Dragon. Those were beautiful. Most of that army not firing for the first 6 seconds of the engagement. and that will get the job done in that engage. On the other hand, Oliveira still has a very large economy. His upgrades are getting in close to max, which I always feel 3-3 mech is a bit better than 3-3 Hydra Zergling. The upgrades simply scale better because the units are so big and chunky, and the armor upgrades especially are massive. And a Hydra Viper Baneling army, it seems okay when you trade like that. And then you look at the bank of RagnaroK and you go, that's not good. You need a giant bank if you're going to be throwing that many Banelings away.
It is really tough. And you know I'm a big fan of Thors with 3-3 upgrades. They are strong, beefy, tanky units that can absorb especially a lot of damage, not just from the Banelings and everything, but even when the Lings start getting in on top of the Thors after the Banelings have been used, those Thors just absorb so much damage with that armor. We're going to see a weird position now where Oliveira's got to be a little bit more pinned back, so RagnaroK should have a bit of space to work with just because Oliveira has to rebuild his army.
There's still 4 Thors out, and RagnaroK's going for a round of Broodlords. So I think with 4 Thors already out and Ghosts coming in 3 at a time, this is not the greatest moment to really be going for a round of Broodlords. On the other hand, I've seen RagnaroK micro it so well in the past that he finds these angles to just, all the tanks start friendly firing, the Broodlords are in and out, he's breaking vision and interrupting those snipes. So a big round of course, Hydra, Baneling, Broodlord can be effective. The Ghosts don't really have any upgrades. No engineering bay upgrades for those. Of course, he's still getting all the building upgrades as well as Cloak for those Ghosts. +3 vehicle armor coming in. And lots of command centers building up to shore up Oliveira's position for the late game. The one big problem he has is his SCV count is so high. And that means his army is actually very small. So there's an awkward balance, right? If you suddenly don't have any Hellbats, Broodlings, Zerglings are such a problem for you. So if he loses the only 6 Hellbats he has in his maxed army, his army massively drops in power. Likewise, if he loses all of his tanks, Hydras become way more effective.
No, I think that's a super valid point. How do you feel like the new Broodlord changes are going to be affecting this, if at all? The Broodlord's a little bit more adept at kiting the movement speed and everything, but does that affect the interactions with Ghosts or Thors and things like that?
Definitely, you're slightly more mobile, which is very nice. When the Hellbats aren't there, you're not as powerful because those Broodlings have about half the duration now. So when they're getting roasted instantly, it doesn't change anything. But in these long-range siege situations, you don't have that same ability to siege your opponent from 2 screens away the way Dark used to do. Oh, look at that. Look at that angling. A lot of SCVs going down. Oliveira needs to be swapping all those Thors into high-impact payload. There we go, pulling those guns out. Hydras and Banes, a few of them trickle in. Bit of a mistake there for RagnaroK.
Snipes.
Where are the Vipers? Where's the Spellcasters? I think RagnaroK needs to get some Blinding Clouds when push comes to shove. At the same time, Oliveira is not able to get in snipe range. He loses the Planetary.
Yeah, it seems like even though Oliveira is finding little pickoffs here and there on the Broodlords, on some of the frontal units, he is losing the actual bases, and I'd say RagnaroK is going to probably feel pretty good about how the siege has gone so far.
Absolutely, he's starting to build bank behind this as well. There's not many Hellbats in the mix. The tanks aren't sieged right now. Double EMP on the Vipers, very nice move. And now you might be confident moving forward to remove this creep spread, which is such a big problem. Right now, as Oliveira, you're like, I need to get rid of this creep and this vision. But RagnaroK just rotates to the north. He says, okay, cool. You're going to try and reposition. I'm going to move up north and try to take out the bases up there. Oliveira is taking a lot of income damage during this. He's going to move on to the north side. This command center does land, but look at the way he's using this terrain, this big piece, this kind of foresty gash in the map. It's causing an area where Oliveira is just getting pulled to the right, the left, the top, and the bottom. And it's all about RagnaroK picking where and when the fights happen.
I love that. I love that it's, both of these players have mobile and less mobile units. And the less mobile units for Oliveira are, in fact, the ground units. It's the Thors, it's siege tanks and everything that really do take a bit longer to move around. Whereas the immobile units for RagnaroK are still air units. They can take advantage of the terrain like that and really find effective ways to try and catch his opponent a bit out of position.
Oliveira starting to do some Hellbat run-bys as he rounds out his bio upgrades for the Ghosts, of course. And he's going to start to push this creep back, which is very important, but there is ambushes out there. Ooh. There's Infestors with Fungal. They're going to be getting Neural up soon. The Vipers have regained their energy as well. Hellbat's trading out with some Zergling, Baneling. I think clearing the creep is great right now. He's just going to want to make sure he doesn't hang around too long because, yeah, the Broodlord Spellcaster ambush is so scary.
I love that he just segmented off 2 scouting Hellions to move a bit further forward. It's like, is this a dangerous area? It's actually, yes, this is the wrong neighborhood to be in right now. Decides to back up. Gets off of creep as well as that creep is going to start receding. So a much more manageable position if he ends up having to take an engagement there. Seems like some Vipers could be dancing their way straight into some Widow Mines very shortly, but we'll see.
My gosh, that is so many Banelings! What is the unit count on that? Is that 80? 74 Banelings. This is the least cost-efficient army ever, but if he can just blow up all the Ghosts and Hellbats, he might be able to just clear this. You got to be so careful as Oliveira. RagnaroK's going for it. That is a ridiculous number of Banelings.
Siege tanks were not sieged in time for the actual attack. And Blind Cloud also comes out on top of these Thors, so they are unable to do most of the damage. The Vipers running straight on forward, still alive. The army for Oliveira has been decimated by RagnaroK. RagnaroK will not be denied. He sits up 50 supply with a bank still around. Cost efficiency be damned.
This was so smart by RagnaroK. He played with the Broodlords, with the Vipers. He showed him all these technical units, even Infestors, and he really made Oliveira worried about the high-tech game. And you know what he did? He said, it's only 9 Broodlords and 3 Vipers. I'm actually just massing Baneling Hydra. And Oliveira was not prepared for it. He was so focused on the high-tech units. He was too clumped up. His Ghosts were too busy running, which meant the Vipers landed killer blinding clouds. And that was just an excellent engagement for RagnaroK, really befuddling his opponent and tricking him. Such brilliant way of taking apart mech. It's been so long since we saw someone do it this way with mass Hydra Bane.
Really, really excellently done. You can see Oliveira is barely just trying to clean things up. Thors are powerful units, but the problem is just going to be how immobile they are. As you see, all the units start slowly mounting a defense over the natural. Well, we'll just head up to all the other important mining bases on the top side, knock those guys out, and you know what? Even if RagnaroK ends up losing all these units, he's still got a superior army supply you can just remake those units with.
There's just so many of those explodey boys, Fear Dragon, and it really is something where against RagnaroK, you need to always be, at all times, monitoring his army comp. And if he's still got that large number of Ling Bane, it's, I mean, we know what, like, Oliveira would do if he could have a do-over here, right? Channel is in Amaru. We would have 20 Widow Mines spread across all the bases. We'd have tanks sitting behind ledges. And you just say, I'm not going to try and take you out because there's no urgency. I have the more efficient composition in the long term. We're going to split the map. I'm going to take one base at a time. I'm going to let you come off creep to me. And I'm going to be so well spread out with all these splash damage units, the Banelings won't be cost efficient. But of course, easy for us to say when we get to see everything. Easy for Oliveira to say when he looks at the replay. Right now, he's playing at half the supply of his opponent.
One thing I actually do want to commend RagnaroK on is if this game had started moving into the more of the split map, mine out the map kind of scenario, I do feel like RagnaroK was expanding at a kind of pace that he would have been able to still kind of be in contention with that.
Absolutely. Oh, 4 Thors. They are very nice. He's even making them turn and shoot each other immediately. He says, don't worry, the Banelings will take out the planetary. You guys take care of each other.
There it is.
That is the finishing blow. Oh, you could tell he's very excited about that. That is a brilliant victory. And doing it against various styles.